Hey everyone, Genome here with the next episode of Was It Good? Today, I'm going to go back to deepest, darkest 1981 for our landmark album in not only the electronic genre, but in music in general. Now, many of you may wonder why I'm dressed like this. Well, I took inspiration from the artists themselves and some of their music videos. They are well known for not showing themselves in their videos. Today's album was done by a band who has been, I would almost say, revered by many in the music industry for well over 40 years now. While there are plenty of people in the States who have heard of them, there's probably an even greater amount that never have, and that truly is a shame because these people were pioneers. So who is this amazingly influential band, you ask? Well, that would be none other than Kraftwerk, or for those in America, Kraftwerk. Once again, the album is from 1981, and it is what I consider their landmark album, Computer World. Computer World was, I would say, one of the very first truly electronic albums. I mean, this album utilized synths, vocoders. It even has a very interesting effect they do for some vocals when they're actually going through a Texas Instruments language translator. So yeah, they pulled out all the technological stops when they made this album. And it's funny because every song in some way has to do with the computer. But at the time, apparently, the group doesn't even own a computer. So the studio magic was done well before all the digital tricks that we know now. And that's another thing that makes this album so incredible. Because this album is clean, crisp, clear, and if other than maybe some of the samples and the voiceovers and maybe the layering, you wouldn't know that it wasn't released 2 years ago. It was just that good and that well produced. So let's get into the tracks a little bit, and then we'll kind of dissect the album, and then we'll take it from there. So the first song on the album is the aptly named Computer World. And this is actually a two-part song. They break it up in different parts of the album. And it's the first track on the album, and let me tell you, it is a great way to lead off this album. It is very indicative of the rest of the album. It's kind of a glacial pace, clean, deceptively simple, yet complex at the same time. Not to wax poetic, but it's just a great, great song. I'm not totally sure why they split it up, maybe just to make the album appear longer. As it is, it only clocks in at 7 songs, and this accounts for 2 of them. But it's a great lead-off song to the album, and a very worthy inclusion, of course. The next song is Pocket Calculator. Now, this song is kind of interesting. It's pretty decent in a Revenge of the Nerds kind of way. I don't know why, but this just reminds me of Revenge of the Nerds, and maybe it has smacks of a little bit of Funky Town, a little Limp Bizkit there, but
I'm the operator with my pocket calculator. I'm the operator with my pocket calculator.
It's an okay song. I mean, it's not one of my favorites in the album, but it's fairly humorous. The next song on the album is Numbers. This is probably the weakest song on the album to me, and I'm not really a fan of it too much. It basically sounds like a sound check that they included on the album. The fourth song is Computer World. It's basically part 2 of the opening track. It's just basically a continuation of the original song, and it's still good. Still a great song. The ending does drag out a little bit. They could have probably spliced off the last 30 seconds or so of the song. But other than that, it's a great closure to that song. Fifth song on the album is Computer Love, and this is one of the songs that was released as a single over in Europe. This is a real good song as well, and it's kind of funny. The synth work in this song reminds me of some older Castlevania games. I don't know why. If you scraped out any of the vocals on this, I would actually see this at home in one of the 8-bit era Castlevania games. It's very atmospheric, but it's a fun song. It's a good one. Now, song 6 is my favorite song of the album, and that's Home Computer. This song just reeks of atmosphere. It is what I would call the great-granddaddy of ambient music as it is now today. Bands like Code 4 and the like that can kind of trace their roots back to songs just like this.
I program my home computer. Myself into the future.
This one is very indicative of the quality that that Kraftwerk could put out there in the electronic spectrum of things. So definitely, if I was to recommend one song to listen to on the album, it would be this one. And I actually believe it's the longest song on the album as well. And finally, we get to the 7th and final song. It's More Fun to Compute. This one's got more of a, I'm not sure how you would put it, but it's got more of a street feel to it. It's got the synthesized, like you're smashing on the brakes sound kind of repeats on and on.
It's more fun to compute. It's more fun to compute. It's more fun to compute. It's more fun to compute.
Pop Will Eat Itself did a song similar like this, though with a lot more vocals and more up-tempo, much later down the road. But it's a great closing song, and just a great song in general. This album is just so far ahead of its time. It's not even funny. And I believe it took him about 2 years to produce this, to record and produce this album. So that just shows you how much time and effort they had to put into it. Considering the technological limitations at the time, it's no real surprise. But out of that came an album that was well worth the time they put into it, at least in my humble opinion. It's a landmark album. It's one not to be missed. And the funny thing is, outside of possibly, once again, some of the samples that are used in there and the vocoder work, it sounds very modern, especially in the early 80s. A lot of the songs put out there that would try for sound effects and backing synths, they just sound so incredibly dated now. Let's take, for example, some work like Steve Miller. He was more 70s, but even in the 80s, he was still doing some of his work, and a lot of his synth stuff just sounds, teeth-gratingly bad sometimes when he tries for atmosphere with the synths. But Kraftwerk got it right. They just knew how to make it simple, to the point, and I don't know, the music is like drifting above a snowbank and dragging your toes through it, like you're just floating an inch above the surface, and the breeze is blowing you along, and your feet are just dragging trails through the snow. That's what their music reminds me of. I don't know any other way to describe it, but I guess the best way to describe it would be spectacular. But anyway, as far as this album, I would definitely call it a great album. As far as listening, this is where it will break away a little bit. As far as music and the contributions that this album made to how we listen to music now, this album is great. It's genre defining. Basically my highest rating I could possibly give it. As far as listening to it, I will say it's good. It's not something I want to keep on repeat constantly and listen to it at all hours in the vehicle and at home. But it's definitely one you can put on every year or so, or even every couple of months, and just sit back with the snifter of brandy perhaps, and just let the auditory waves wash over you at the production beach. But yeah, it's just a great one. And if you haven't heard this album before and you're any kind of fan at all of like EBM or just electronic music in general, you really owe it to yourself to listen to this album and kind of see where the genre got its, not necessarily its total start, but its progression, completion, and I would dare to say perfection. So yes, give the album a try if you're any kind of fan of electronic music. So anyway, thanks for watching. Don't forget to like and subscribe. If you have anything to add, please put it in the comments below. I'd love to hear from y'all. I'll have some more reviews coming up shortly, and I've received several great ideas from viewers on some things that they actually want to see done and reviewed. So stay tuned for more content coming up shortly. Until then, this is Kraftwerk, Genome, out.
I program my home computer. Beam myself into the future.